WBNE.
Hello and welcome to episode 169. 69. All about the Rings of Power. Season 1, episode 4, The Great Wave. Being the 169th part of That's What I'm Talking About. Yes, I am a child. Hello, my name is Mary Clay. If that's too complicated for you, just call me MC. I've been experiencing the world of J.R.R. Tolkien for the first time, but right now we are all experiencing Rings of Power for the first time together. Today, I am joined by actor and community organizer, and honestly, someone who I've seen in my Twitter sphere, my Tolkien sphere for a while, and I just wanted to chat with. Maria, welcome.
Woo! I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. Yeah, I've seen like your name and your profile and stuff like show up in various platforms, and I was like, I gotta reach out to her. So I'm glad I did.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry. My earpods are like coming out right now. I've also been seeing you around for like a hot minute. First of all, I'm so excited by just anybody being brought onto the Legendarium in any capacity. And the fact that you're chronicling this is so special. Like I wish when I was like 7, I had started chronicling my reactions in real time. I think this is so sick.
Yeah, it is really fun to like go back and be able to hear certain reactions or thoughts. Or the funniest thing is when I go back and look through my notes that I was taking as I was reading everything and being like, wow, this is hilarious. Like I remember in the first chapter of Lord of the Rings, it mentioned something about like walking trees. And I was like, walking trees? What is this? The Prince Caspian movie? Just because that was like my like touchstone. And then like, I learned that like C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were friends, and then there are Ints showing up and like they're influenced by each other and like all this stuff. So yeah, it's really fun to go back and see those reactions and thoughts. Why don't you tell me and the listeners what your history was like with Tolkien or Lord of the Rings? Like, what have you read or watched or anything?
So, okay, first off, I was raised by 2 Tolkien nerds, which is just a blessing, a blessing in every way. I first read The Hobbit when I was 7. We had like a little family book club of like my parents and I, that they would read whatever I'm reading and we would like read aloud to each other. It was really cute. So one of my earliest memories is reading the end of The Hobbit aloud and having to pass the book off to my dad because I couldn't bear to read Thorin's death aloud.
Oh,
just distraught. And then I watched the trilogy when I was 8. Hooked. It was over for me. I was done for. And that was actually a huge reason why I wanted to be an actor. And then I read the trilogy when I was 9, and I tried to read the Silmarillion when I was 10. Did not work.
The fact that you read the books when you were 9 is astounding to me in and of itself. That's madness.
I was a very bookwormish kid. I think it was around the age of like 12 where I finally put my foot down. I was really irked that I hadn't been able to get through the Silmarillion. Like that just drove me up the wall. And so I was like, I need to know Tolkien's works the way I know Harry Potter. And so I sat down. I had like a little map open. I had a secondary copy of the Silmarillion open to the glossary, and I had the primary copy. And I was like, I'm going to get this if it kills me.
Oh my gosh, that's dedication right there.
Absolutely. I made little color-coded flashcards, and then, the rest is history. Over the last several years, I've like read all the expanded lore, and I try to reread the Legendarium, like the core Legendarium annually. So we're in it, just deep in it.
How are you feeling right now with Rings of Power? Like, what are some like, because also of note, we are now halfway through the season with this episode, which is so crazy. So like, I know I don't know, a lot of times I'm just like, you know what, maybe I don't know how I feel. I'm just having a good time and I'm just, here for the ride. So what are your like, how are you feeling at this point, coming in?
Having a good time and here for the ride. Excellent phrases, very apt phrases. I think I very deliberately did not go online or go on a friend's podcast and give a take until now. This was 100% deliberate because I was like,
I'm honored.
Absolutely. Like I joined in like Fellowship of Fans last week because I like felt really good about episode 3, but I was really like I want to give actual time because I know they're gonna take time with this story, and so episodes 1 and 2 I saw at the premiere, which is really really cool, and I really liked them, but I wasn't like sold. I wasn't like completely starry eyed and in love with it the way I wanted to be. But I knew that they were setting up so many things. They were setting up so many
Yeah.
different geographic areas and families and everything. So I was like, let me give it time. I was like, episode 3 will tell me whether or not I'm really hopeful because Numenor, I think, is the heart of the Second Age. And we got to Numenor and I was like, this is getting really good. Like, I really loved episode 3. And then episode 4 outdid episode 3 for me. So each episode is better than the last. Really liked 1, really, really liked 2, loved 3, absolutely loved 4. So now I'm like, all right, I'm in it. I'm invested. I believe that they did a beautiful job. And now I have a sense of how they're pacing everything. And I have a sense of how they're allowing things to grow really organically. They have the confidence not to rush things. And that's super exciting for me. I'm just having a great time.
That's a really great way, just saying they have the confidence not to rush things. I think is that like has really added a new perspective for me, because I have kind of been like, okay, I really feel like we're like dragging things out, like we're really slow on the uptake here. I think this series is going to be a lot more of a slow burn than something like really dramatic and impactful right out of the gate. Yeah, I do think this episode is I would agree that for me personally, each episode is better than the previous one. And like the way that we see things, like some pieces coming together and we're learning more about characters. We're getting more time with more characters that we're like, well, hang on, like, what's her deal? And then we find out like, oh, okay, that's her deal. I get it now. So I find that ironic too. You and I both say that episode 4, at least for us personally, it was better than episode 3. Just going off of Rotten Tomatoes critics score, they gave this episode an 81%, which is the lowest that they've given episodes so far. So I found that interesting.
That's the beauty of art. People, just like some people love the Harfoots, some people are really not on board with the Harfoots. This is so subjective. And I
That's
love
why it was
that.
so low. It's because the Harfoots weren't in this episode.
Ah,
That's
interesting.
why.
They were like, bring
Yeah.
the hobbits back. Bring them back.
Yes. We love them. The episode description for this one is: the Queen Regent Muriel's faith is tested. Isildur comes to a crossroads. I find that interesting that they put that in there, because I don't think I would have pulled that out as like this was like a key plot point in this episode, but okay. Arondir receives an ultimatum. Elrond unveils a secret. Theo disobeys Bronwyn. I just love these episode descriptions because they have to be as vague as possible.
Just so generic. They're like, here are the vibes. Here are the vibes of your favorite characters and what they're up to.
Yeah, like I might have said, like the Queen Regent Muriel's faith is tested. That sounds good to me. I probably would have left out the part about Isildur. He's like not exactly important right now. He's just like some kid in the background causing trouble, Arondir receives an ultimatum. That sounds fine. Yeah, I guess. Maybe like Elrond and Durin's friendship is tested, or like is taken to another level. I don't know, something, or is renewed. And then instead of like Theo disobeys Bronwyn, maybe like Theo uncovers more darkness in the land or something. I don't know, or discovers the reaches of darkness. I don't know. Let's see what else. I'm trying to think of like anything else about. I would say another, I don't know, just general thing for this episode is that it's really hard for me because I do remember watching it and like being able, there were like certain points where I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but then like the ending for me was such a banger that I was like, great episode, quality. So I feel like they've really done that the past, that's kind of their style, is like they go out, each episode ends with a bang, to be like, for you to have that immediately in your mind, to be like, wow, that was awesome, I want to see what happens next.
They're really good at like just ending on something that keeps you hooked, even if it's not necessarily a cliffhanger. It has that energy. And what
Yeah.
I'm really interested in and just the overall format of this series is because we've never consumed Middle Earth as a series before, right? So I think we're all getting used to this completely different style of pacing rather than like a 3-act film
Yeah.
structure over a course of many films. But like, I'm obsessed with how they have 1,000 tiny cliffhangers throughout the show. They're like, here's 2 minutes of Numenor, and we're gonna cut in the middle of a very tense scene, and we're gonna go to the Southlands, and we're gonna cut in the middle of something very tense. Like, they're really, it seems like a big focus in the editing room was like maintaining interest even throughout the episode and into the next one. And I'm kind of obsessed with
Yeah.
the drama of that.
Yeah. And it's I think that's definitely a good way of maintaining the watchers, the audience's interest throughout all these different plot lines, because usually shows that have multiple characters like this, it's like an A plot, B plot, C plot. Whereas this, I don't even know like what you would begin to, I mean, like I guess like Galadriel's story, I guess, is the A plot, but like everything else is, I wouldn't even say like a B plot. It's like an A minus plot, like
Yeah, I think that's what's, and I think that that's actually why I enjoyed this episode so much, is because we had to spend a couple episodes with all of these completely isolated stories happening. Like you said, it's like, is it a B? Is it an A minus? But with this episode, things like the threads really started to come together for the first time in earnest. And I was like, oh, this is such a satisfying feeling that all of the different things that were happening in isolation are starting to really join into one like overarching, oh no, there's darkness in Middle Earth, which is satisfying as a
yeah.
viewer.
Yeah. Let's jump right into talking about the details of everything. If you haven't watched this week's Rings of Power episode, turn off now and return later. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that much of a giveaway. We already mentioned that we don't see the Harfoots this episode, which is the first time we have not seen them. And then I think for the most part, all of the other characters that we're with, like, we already knew about. I don't think there are any new characters. The only new character I can think of that was introduced in this episode is Pharazon's son, and Pharazon is the advisor, I think, to Marielle. And his son is, I believe his name is Kemen.
Kemen, our boy.
And he comes in flirting mad with Elendil's daughter. I looked it up because the previous episode I was like, I don't remember her name, sorry. Aarion.
Our queen. I really, really love Aarion. I really love
she's like precious.
She's precious. I love that family trio. I think their dynamic is really strong and their chemistry is excellent. But yeah, I guess technically, I mean, this is the first time we've probably seen Adar, after just...
Yes. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Because in the previous episode, he was out of focus at the very end. Yeah, that's right. We do see more of Adar. And then I think we see Muriel's father, even though he doesn't like have any lines or anything, but we learn more about him. So those are kind of like the new characters that we're exploring more this episode. But yeah, for the most part now it's like, okay, we know who these characters are, even though like a lot of times I still have to like be like, okay, wait, what's the name of this character? Who am I about to talk about? That being said, about the Harfoots, I think it makes total sense that we don't see them this episode, because theoretically they're just traveling, like that's where we left them on the previous episode, as they were starting off on their next migration. And I think it's presumed that they're still migrating. They're still walking. So
yeah, and I think, I don't know. So like I adore the Harfoots. I think they're just so precious, and I think Nori is such. First of all, that actress is doing an amazing job.
She's awesome.
She's so magnetic in every way. But even just thinking about, like I'm a lore girl, and like there isn't really a lot about like hobbits or Harfoots in the Second Age, and I'm thinking about how much we were able to delve into this episode and how much we were able to develop. And I'm like, yeah, like I kind of like this framing of like, let's focus on the elves, men, and dwarves, because that's the meat and potatoes of the Second Age.
Yeah.
So and like enjoy snippets of the Harfoots, whatever they've got going on with the stranger. Yeah, I like.
Yeah, and I think I was gonna say, I think the Harfoots are essentially like, I don't think they would have been included in this story had it not been for the stranger coming in.
Absolutely.
So I think they're just like a means for showing the audience more about the stranger.
100%.
First, I like, yeah, again, it's like I don't even know what to talk about first. Because I don't know what's like the most impactful, but I guess Numenor is huge. Like the development and everything that's happened on the Numenor side of things in this episode. We have I'll talk like a little bit more about Isildur, because in the previous episode we didn't really focus on him much, but like
Oh boy.
his dream, we kind of learn more about their family dynamics, and he has an older brother who wanted to sail off to the west and supposedly has gone missing or left them entirely or something, and he wants to do that as well, and he ends up getting he and his friends dismissed from the sail guard camp, whatever it's called. And so like that's his motivation for what he does at the end of the episode. It's like I was kind of laughing because in one of the scenes he says like, I've brought shame on the family name, and I'm like,
Boy,
not
relax.
quite yet. Like why don't you wait a little bit, because you got something more coming later on in life.
Absolutely. That also sent me. I was like, baby, you have no idea.
Yes.
Um, no, this is such a minor quip, but I think it's really interesting that they've decided to make Anarion the older brother because canonically he's the younger. I think that's a really interesting,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I think that's a really interesting choice to make. So like casting Isildur as this like person kind of looking out on his brother's shadow is like an interesting character choice that I'm on board with. I love that we get to see this like lost, unmoored Isildur who obviously has a good heart, because I've talked about this before, but Isildur is one of my favorite characters. I think he was done completely dirty by Jackson's prologue. I love PJ. I love PJ, but that like melodramatized, no, I will take
Yes.
so I really loved seeing the conflict. I really love that his sister is on track now to be probably turned into one of like the king's men, to turn her back on the faithful entirely. That's what I'm gathering from the Kemen thing, is that he's absolutely trying to get to their family.
Oh.
Yeah, like she's like in the builder's guild.
I didn't necessarily think about that, of like them trying to get to his interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like the fact that Kemen goes after Isildur's sister right after like Miriel sort of like confronts Elendil, and Pharazon notices that Elendil is getting a little busy, like he's getting involved with the whole Galadriel thing. Like I think, Elendil's name being elf friend, like I think Pharazon is making a calculated move to get at least one of the family on their side.
See, that kind of pains me to hear, because Kemen was like really smooth with the moves that he was putting on Arian. He like there's a moment where they bump into each other when she's supposed to be. So she's
Meet
an
cute.
apprentice. She's an apprentice. And she's like scrubbing floors, and she's like, the guild master says it's for dexterity. It's like, or so he says. And I love just that little moment of showing that like kind of like the real world like reality of like being an intern and just being sent to like fetch coffee or something. Like this is that equivalent.
Yeah, like it's so funny.
Yeah. And then she's like, I have to scrub the floors and like clean the goblets. And he's like, you go do the goblets, I'll clean the floors, and whoever finishes first buys the other dinner. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Kemen definitely got his daddy's diplomacy and his charm.
Yes.
Speaking of which, oh my God, I've been so excited to see Pharazon in action. I've just been itching, and this episode was excellent for that. I was like,
Yeah.
ah, he,
Yeah, that moment when he there's like an angry mob at the beginning of the episode, mad that Galadriel's there, and the way that like he goes in and like turns the crowd, and like I mean like he goes in, and the things that he says are the things that the crowd wants to hear, but he like I don't know what the word is for it. He dissipates, I don't know, all of the tension, and is like drinks all around, and totally like gets the crowd to calm down and everything. And I was really impressed with that part.
honestly, the guy with the black eye, I can't remember what his name is, but the guy that got decked by Galabrand, basically, who was like stirring up
Yeah.
the crowd to begin with. In the first episode that we see Muriel and Pharazon, that guy was standing right next to Pharazon. And so I have a feeling that him and Pharazon are working together, and he stirred the crowd up on purpose so that Pharazon could swoop in and do his thing and manipulate to like
Hmm.
frame. Like, I think this is a long game of like Pharazon framing himself as man of the people, so that the second Muriel leaves, which conveniently she has taking like several of the faithful with her, that he can start orchestrating his coup.
So true. Yes. Oh my gosh. I love how observant you are, that like those details I did not notice like at all. Did not notice that random guy standing next to Pharaoh's. Like, wow, that's really great.
I'm so invested in Numenor, and that's why I will say my one of my like two minor quips with this episode was like the line of like the elves are coming to take our jobs.
Oh my God.
I was like, okay, first of all, I mean, if you strip like the very clear real world parallel from that, I am interested because like xenophobia is not a modern sensibility. Job insecurity is not necessarily a modern sensibility. And like I am interested in the idea of the Numenorians in their like rising fear and hysteria being intimidated by the elves. It's like, oh, not only do they live longer, they're stronger. They don't have to sleep. Like the core of that was interesting to me, but like I would love to watch like a Tolkien story without thinking of like Donald Trump. I thought that was a
Oh
little
my God, right?
thought that was a little much, but other than that, love that whole sequence.
I think also like worth mentioning, the episode opens with Numenor being destroyed. And it's, I mean, because when it first started happening, I was like, are we here already? Okay. I was like, oh, okay, that was fast. All right.
Yeah.
I guess we're not going to see more in Numenor. And then I was like, this has to be a dream, right? This is a dream. And sure enough, it was Muriel dreaming. And we learned that they have a palantir that I'm assuming has been passed down from king to king, with this vision showing the destruction of Numenor beginning with the arrival of an elf. And I was like, I understand now, like how their like ostracization, I don't think that was a word. How them like breaking off their close relationship with the elves. I understand why the kings would do that if they're like, we have to protect the kingdom because we have to keep the elves out because our destruction is at the hand of an elf.
Absolutely.
So like that was great, like seeing that those little pieces come together and everything. And so like it makes sense like why the kings, like from a strategy, from like a perspective of wanting to preserve the kingdom, would break off their relations with the elves. But like as a regular villager, you don't know those reasons why. And so having those, feelings being exaggerated, I guess, and passed on from generation to generation is like how we see this like angry mob forming today,
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's like I said earlier, I think that Numenor is the core, is like the heart of every second age, like beauty, triumph, and failure and heartbreak. And I think it's only effective, like Numenor as a part of the plot is only effective if we like understand and empathize with the Numenorians, which is another reason I really disliked the MAGA parallel. I was like, well, what are we doing here? Because the fact is like they aren't like an inherently evil people. And this was another thing that's like tricky with the time compression, which like I am at this point fully on board with, because it would just be so impractical to be casting new humans every episode. But like
Yeah.
the slow but steady dissatisfaction and fear that grows from being able to like peer off into the distance and see this tantalizing silhouette of paradise that you'll never quite reach. And like once Sauron and his poison starts coming into play, that like very understandable terror of mortality, of like not viewing it as a gift but viewing it as a doom, like that's so everybody's scared to die, like everybody's scared to lose that beautiful life that they've created in Numenor. So like we have to retain that humanity, which is like absolutely like it does make sense that they'd be so discombobulated by Galadriel's arrival.
Yeah. And then speaking of which, Galadriel is trying to get Miriel
Yeah.
to team up and go fight who they believe is, Sauron has already, and we still don't know exactly if Sauron has returned or not. Is he Adar? We'll get to that in a bit, but definitely there is Sauron's power is growing in the Southlands, and so she's trying to get Miriel to send out armies with her and team up and go fight. And Miriel is extremely reluctant because she knows she has this vision in her mind of Numenor being destroyed. And I get so much more of Muriel's thinking, just like as the queen, as trying to like take care of an entire kingdom and do it, with diplomacy and everything. Like I get so much more of her in this episode, whereas in the previous episode it was just like she's just annoying and we didn't really like see much of her. Yeah, I don't know what you would even like do in that circumstance of like, that something is coming that's going to destroy everything, and how do you prevent it?
Yeah, it's terrifying. Like she is in arguably the most difficult position right now because she
Yeah.
saw firsthand what happened with like her father, who was just so vocally faithful to the old ways. And like on the other hand, she knows she can't forsake it, but she has to put on this like very public face that she's like pro-Numenorian, pro-human, whatever. Like the balancing act that she is pulling off right
Yeah.
now is Herculean. I do not envy her at all.
Yeah. And I appreciate in this episode that we're done, where there's a moment finally of like Galadriel and Miriel like having like actual conversation and talking rather than like fighting. And I'm like, because I didn't want to see more of that dragging out over the season. Like, I'm glad, like, okay, we're on the same side now. We're seeing eye to eye. Everything that's happening with like Galadriel knows everything that Miriel is dealing with. Miriel has learned everything that Galadriel has told her that she's learned, and they're on the same side. And I'm glad we don't have to like see more of like Galadriel trying to convince her to join them, that like she made this definitive decision by the end of the episode that they are going to go to Middle Earth and fight this thing.
Yeah. It's so relieving to see like these two like powerful women not just glaring daggers at each other and exchanging, but especially because I like totally understand like Galadriel that we see in this show needs to be so radically different from third age Galadriel because we need to see her arc, right? But like sometimes, and I think Morfydd is doing like excellent job.
Oh my gosh,
she's sensational. But sometimes I fear in the directorial need for contrast from third age Galadriel that like we've gone like a little too far.
Yeah.
Like she's been kind of completely reduced of like status. Like, the way like Gil-galad talked to her, the way her like soldiers talk to her, the way that she apparently doesn't maybe it's not that she doesn't have diplomatic skills. Maybe it's just that like now she doesn't have the patience for them. But like I really struggled with like Hallbrand being the one. It's like, have you tried being? I just like Galadriel's like one of the oldest beings, right? Like she was around.
Yeah,
she's been
as amazing. Like as there are just so many parts of Galadriel that I relate to, and also that's just like a part of me, like just like the little girl in me craving this kind of a character in a TV show for years and years, and like finally getting this,
Yeah.
But like it is extremely annoying to me that they've really made Galadriel to be very like naive and headstrong, and I'm like, she's like thousands of years old by this point. She's older than everyone else. She would have more tact and wisdom than this Galadriel. So I really don't appreciate that. And I don't know if that's like to do with the timeline compression and everything, but like it is getting like really annoying of being like Galadriel would know how to handle herself in this situation.
Absolutely. This is the Galadriel that like spent the first age with Melian, like in Melian's court. Like Melian is like one of the most powerful, wise, like woman rulers of like, it's like what, like, again, I think if like they had made the directorial choice of like she's so much older and wise that she's like fed up, but yeah, I'm excited that we seem to be finally moving away from like a very like you said, naive version of her that doesn't know anything other than like, ha!
Yeah.
I'm excited for this new
Yeah,
Galadriel.
which Halbrand points out, this is another point in my enemies to lovers column for Halbrand and
Please?
Galadriel. That scene of them like arguing so Galadriel gets thrown in jail
Right.
and Halbrand is just like playfully bickering with her the whole time and I'm living for it. And he says
Right.
like, I know you're the kind of person he keeps using the word gallop to like gallop headfirst into action against orcs and monsters, but have you considered that these are men and like you might need to be a little more tactful here?
Yeah.
And they have this conversation and then at one point like Galadriel says, would you stop referring to me as a horse? And then
Period.
he says if you let me stay in Numenor, we have a deal. I'll stop calling you a horse, you know? And I was like, they both put their faces through the bars as they're like arguing. And I'm like, I'm living for this.
It was
I'm living for this.
excellent contact. I'm really enjoying, even though like, like the lore part of me is like, what about Celeborn?
I
Excuse
know.
me. But like, I'm really enjoying just like the chemistry that the two actors have
Oh
on
my God.
screen. And Halbrand,
Crazy.
I am getting
Oh
more
my
and more
God.
invested in Halbrand. I'm so interested. I love Galadriel around him. Like, and God, I loved Galadriel with Muriel, like later on in the episode. But yeah, they're just so fun. They're so fun to
Yes.
watch.
That's what I like made this meme last week about like Galadriel and Halbrand and so many people were like well that's not true because she's in love with Celeborn
Right.
and like elves only fall in love once and like all this and I'm like okay, first of all, I don't think in this timeline she has met Celeborn yet or is married to him, and second of all, girly can have a little fun along the way, like she can have some fun. And no, I don't fit like no, obviously Halbrand and Galaborn, what are their names?
Galaborn.
Halbrand and Galadriel are not going to be endgame, obviously. I think
Absolutely.
it's going to go south very fast because I think given Halbrand's background and like what we know to come in the future, I think things are going to go south for him. Which is going to be really painful actually because they are making him like a very like fun, playful, likable character of like all these moments of him just like being sarcastic and like all these like smirks that he's giving her and stuff like that
Yeah.
is going to be a bit painful when we're seeing possibly like reverse a destroyed or a failed redemption story for him like of his background, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point, we gotta address the elephant in the room. Who do you think he is? Just so I know.
I think he's just Halbrand, and I think he's just like I don't think he's Sauron. I think he is going to go back. I think they're going to go back to the Southlands, and he's going to get there eventually. And there's going to be some failed attempt at trying to unite everyone, or he will unite and lead everyone, and then there's going to be a battle or something that goes terribly, and things go south for him, and he, is eventually swayed to quote unquote join the dark side. You know, I think he. I've seen a lot of theories saying that like, oh, maybe he is the Witch King. Because he's the king of these people, or he turns and maybe he's one of the kings that, one of the men that becomes a Nazgul. I don't know. I think as far as like, who is he? I think right now he's just Halbrand. Like he's just a man, I don't think there's any like secret identity behind that aside from what we've already learned about his past.
I feel that. I respect that. I'm very torn. I'm very torn. I think on one hand, he could be the eventual king of the dead because like if we follow this like
Yeah.
this Southlands thread and like he goes back and especially if he's from Orodruin, like if he's from the mountainous colony in the Southlands, which like eventually becomes Mount Doom, that would line up with like the men who betray Isildur that he curses, like them being men of the mountains, like that would line up. But I don't know. Then with this episode, when like we see him literally talking through a jail cell to Pharazon, which aligns exactly with the whole Sauron thing. Because, okay, so originally in lore, right, the Sauron is confronted by a Numenorian army, and he's so overwhelmed. Like, he's so like, he recognizes the power and knows that he can't stand against it. So he allows himself to be captured, and he ends up in a jail cell from which he manipulates Pharazon. Now, like, in my head, I'm like, okay, it would make sense that they don't do the whole massive Numenorian army thing because they want to save that for a later climax, and it would just be logistically more difficult to have like multiple big army scenes for like, I don't know, like if you're not actually fighting like a key war, I can see why they would cut that and finagle him into a jail cell in this way. And there's that cut where like that conversation with Pharazon continued, like even like after Galadriel was removed. So I'm like, it's giving Sauron. That specifically is giving Sauron. But now, when like you get so many clues that you're like, this is a misdirection.
Yeah.
That's also where I'm at. Although, yeah, I'm just to me, it's complete 50-50. Like, to me, he's either the future king of the dead, because like, to me, his character is definitely being set up in one way or another for a fall, or he is in fact Sauron. I don't know.
Yeah. In the previous episode, I was saying like I didn't like the reveal that like, oh, you're the king who has turned his back on his people and you have to go back and reunite them, because I was like, are we really just gonna redo an Aragorn plotline here? But I saw a TikTok. I'm so sorry that I can't remember the creator who talked about it, but they were saying, I think they're setting this up to be a parallel of Aragorn's story,
But
where
he fails.
Halbrand is like a failed redemption of
Yeah.
him going back to try and unite these people and take charge, and that failing. And I'm like, oh, I like that. That sounds really interesting to me, of taking a story that we're all familiar with and kind of like flipping it on its head. So I think that'll be, just like every time he shows up, I mean, like, first of all, again, like, love their chemistry. He's very attractive, obviously. So anytime he shows up, I'm paying attention, of course. But I am so interested every time he is on screen, because he is just like such an unknown, of like, okay, what's going on with this guy? Yeah. Okay, jumping. I feel like one more thing worth mentioning about Numenor, because there's like still so much to talk about. Yes. Oh my God. And I don't want to keep us here for like 5 hours. So
I love it. I'm in it.
Oh my God. As Galadriel is leaving, she's been ordered that she is being escorted back to the elves, and she is leaving Numenor, and she has like pleaded with Miriel to, maybe the reason that this vision comes true is because you don't go fight this war. And Muriel's like, I can't take these chances. She's like, I don't know, like, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
And so as Galadriel is leaving, the white petals from the tree start falling, and everyone is kind of like, I tweeted and joked and said like, it was at this moment she knew she fucked up. Yes.
Literally.
And like Miriel and Elendil and Pharazon, like they're all kind of like looking around at each other like, oh, that's not good, because these petals are falling. And I loved that moment, but then her like narration cuts in of explaining what this means. And like we see later on that it's her giving a speech in the present moment. So like, sure, that makes sense. But I didn't appreciate that moment, because it felt very much like hand holding the audience, of being like, hey, remember this thing that we told you in it was literally the previous episode that she said, the petals do not fall idly. Many believe that when the petals fall, it's the Valar like casting their tears upon us in judgment or something.
Yeah.
And so I didn't appreciate that we have this little bit of narration explaining again what this moment is, because I knew what was going on. Everyone who is watching this show right now, I think, is paying attention to those details and would know what's happening. So that part kind of ruined that moment for me.
That's totally fair. It was also like a minor like ding for me. I think I would have been really interested in, instead of just fully repeating verbatim what we had heard the previous episode, I would have been interested in keeping that voice over it, but it being a fully original speech that she's delivering to the Numenorians. Because like, just diplomatically, like, I would not, if I knew there was unrest among my people with like the Valar and the elves, I wouldn't repeat like, it's the Valar's tears, a reminder that their eyes and judgment are upon us. Like, I wouldn't do that because that would just sort of stoke up further unrest. I would
Yeah,
really
I think so
level with
too.
them. You know, I'd be like my people, like we have received the sign, although like we prioritize Numenorians, but you know, it's like there's a more diplomatic way of doing that. And I would have been interested in hearing that better
Yeah.
calculated speech from Muriel, but
Yeah.
you know.
But I do love then the reveal that like Galadriel is still there. That clearly she called the boat back. And that moment of Muriel where you're like, "Oh, she made this decision to send Galadriel away and she immediately received a sign that that was not the right decision, but she decided to go with it anyway." And so I love that we see the reverse of that happening of she made like I just I appreciate it when rulers and TV shows make like definitive decisions, you know?
Right, because that's what was missing from season 8 of Game of Thrones, and it's so nice to see here. And it was also so nice to see Pharazon's immediate like flip-flop, like his two-facedness, where he was just like, yes, like go to Middle Earth, like go, yes, please clear the way for me. I was like, wow, he's living his best life right now.
Yes. With that luscious hair and beard of his. Oh my God. He has the
Absolutely.
best hair in this show, I think.
He's really putting everyone else to shame. He really, really
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
God, what else happened? God, the Southlands.
Yeah. So let's jump to the Southlands now.
Yeah.
So who is Adar? We still don't really know. Because he approaches Arondir, and Arondir has this conversation with him and is like, "Who are you? Why are they calling you father?" And we learn that this person named Adar, who by the way, he doesn't look like an orc. He just looks like an elf who has dropped off his like skincare regimen and
Absolutely.
hasn't shampooed in a while. You know, like he looks like a fallen from grace elf. We learned that he was in like he's familiar with Beleriand and because Arondir says I was, you know, born in Beleriand, and he mentions like a river that runs through Beleriand, and so he's familiar with that land. He's been around. And Arondir's like, "Who are you?" And I appreciate those moments where when like a character is acting as the audience surrogate is actually
Yeah.
asking the questions that like you would want them to ask.
Yeah. Like even Arondir had enough. He was like, let's get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And instead, I hated this. It felt like such a cop out. Adar releases him and says, "Send this, I'm going to release you and go see those men at the watchtower who think that they're being all sneaky and hiding from me, but I know exactly where they are. Go send this message to them." And then he says like, "What's your message?" And then we cut off when we don't see, you know, Arondir doesn't come back into the episode for a while. And then, yeah, back at this watchtower where all of the villages have been seeking refuge, they're running low on rations. Theo has this idea to go back into the village and get, you know, whatever food stores were left over, and to go during the day when the orcs aren't going to be out. And I was like, you know what? That sounds smart.
Absolutely.
That sounds like a great plan. But what happens is they turn him down, and he and his friend, you know, these like teenagers go do it by themselves. And I'm like, okay, well, that's dumb. But even before anything else happens with Theo in this episode, he has a conversation with Bronwyn, his mother, where she's like, "I already have enough going on here. I'm trying to like be like the leader of these people, and they're all mad that they're here, but at
like
the same time they
valid.
would have died if
Yeah.
we hadn't left.
Absolutely.
Either you're gonna help me or you're not, but like you are not gonna be another one of my problems." And he says like, "I'm tired." I can't remember the exact phrasing, but he says like, "I'm tired of like just sitting and waiting. Like it's time to like actually go out and do something and like fight against this and stand up." And it was in that moment that I was like, oh yeah, he's 100% going to be evil. Like if we haven't already seen the signs, like he's going dark for sure. Like he's ready. He's fed up with the way things are now, and he's ready to take action one way or another, you know?
Yeah, I think it's hard because like I see him so very much as like a teenage boy, you know, and like it's
Yeah.
so hard to differentiate that from like, you know, it's like is he are there seeds of evil or is he like a teenager? obviously with like the blood and the sword, it's like, all right, is he going to be like the Witch King? Like what's going on? I don't know. I think I just get so sad when I see like a child being turned to darkness that I'm like, maybe there's redemption for our boy. Maybe like Arondir's presence will help, but I severely doubt it. He does seem
Yeah.
pretty on track for
Yeah,
darkness.
yeah. It I would maybe feel a little bit differently about him if we had gotten to know Theo more before like this part of the plot was introduced to his
Yeah.
character. Cause like there's honestly like there's nothing about him that I'm like, oh, like I love that part how he like saved the baby cow or something. Like if they had like put in something of showing like different parts of his personality, but like kind of right away they just show him being kind of a little like
Yeah.
immediately.
Well, I don't know. I actually like really maybe I'm just so determined to like I'm just being way too gracious toward this kid. I like really like that he was like, no, like y'all, the rest of the men of this encampment are sitting around doing nothing. We're gonna starve. Like I'm gonna go get
Yeah.
food for my village. I was like, that's brave and like that's a good reason and that's a good like so like I really loved that and I was like this is foolish
Yeah.
and it's like to be honest it's a failing of the adults around him that nobody went with him um
Yeah.
but I just
Or that like no one noticed them leaving,
like what do you mean like put better
I don't know.
guards like his friend irritates me more than him like his because obviously to me his friend is being a really bad influence and I'm like get this and also did you notice the friend who I think Theo had like accidentally cut him or something. I can't remember, but like I know his friend got sliced by the mystery blade. His friend looks like really modeled. Up here, it looks a lot like Frodo's wound when he got stabbed by the Morgul
Oh,
blade.
really? Okay, again, your attention to detail. Outstanding.
I'm literally like pausing while I watch the episodes. I'm like,
I need to do that. Because I do like my first watch through, initial reactions and stuff. And then I do another watch through, preferably like right before I record an episode so that it's really fresh in my mind. But now I'm like, do I need to do like a third watch through where I'm like going frame by
right,
frame?
right.
Yeah.
Of course, I could be like reading into that. Maybe he was just dirty. They've been through it.
I did, yeah, they are dirty and filthy peasants, yeah.
Absolutely.
I did see some people analyzing, I think it's Theo's shirt. It could just be some random symbols, but a lot of people were saying that it looks really similar to some of the like stars and constellations that the stranger was looking for. The like
Whoa.
pattern on his shirt, or I'm pretty sure it was Theo's shirt. It could have
Cool.
been his friend's shirt, but either way, it was one of those boys' shirts has like some kind of pattern that someone was theorizing like could be like looks really similar. And it's like it might just be a coincidence. It might be a little bit of foreshadowing that like the stranger is gonna come find Theo or something, or he's gonna encounter him. Who knows?
That's really cool. I'm gonna have to go back and look. That's really cool. I'm obsessed. It's probably not a coincidence. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like if it does really truly resemble it, there's no way that's a coincidence,
Yeah.
like those kinds of details are not. I love those little Easter eggs of things that like the average viewer, if they miss those things, it's not like they miss a huge part of the plot, but like the
Yeah.
things that looking back on it when like hardcore fans are looking for those little hints and Easter eggs, like point to things or foreshadow things. And you're like, oh, okay, they were really laying this path out for us. And like, here are the little Easter eggs along the way.
Yeah. We love little moments where we're like, that's the thing.
Yes. So in the village where they're collecting food and everything, they're like almost done, and then Theo's like, no, let's go in the tavern, like just get one more thing. And his friend is like, I'm not going in there, it's dark, I'm about to like bye. Theo goes in and starts gathering some things. Then some orcs are there and jump out of the shadows, and fight ensues. And Theo pulls out the blade that just, I get, is it just like in the present? I kind of missed it. Does he like press his blood into it again that makes the blade grow? Or does it just like grow automatically when it senses danger?
It looked like he like re-wounded himself to like feed the blade blood, which is pretty metal, honestly. Very intense. I was like, this is a child. We love this.
Or it also could have, I mean, again would need to rewatch that moment, but it also could have been that like his wound that he got from the orc,
Yeah,
his
maybe.
blood like
Yeah.
reforge the blade. And so then the orc is like, oh, that's it. That's what we've been looking for.
Yeah. It is interesting that that's what Adar is looking for. And
Yeah.
so it's like, I don't think Adar is Sauron. I don't think Adar is
No,
Sauron.
I
But
don't think so either.
it's this really interesting thing. Like now I think I'm just seeing it's tough because like so obviously he's at the very least he's a servant of Sauron or like a servant of Morgoth or whatever. I think he might be Maeglin.
I've seen a lot of people. Yeah, I was literally just looking up to double check like who these people are
Are the
so I
girls
didn't
are
get
the
it wrong.
are the girls on board? Does everybody think that?
Yeah, a lot of I've seen theories going around that
Yeah.
Adar is either Maeglin. Reminder for everyone, Maeglin is the little who gave away Gondolin to Sauron and the orcs. And he
Yeah.
is mostly like maybe that I could look past, but like the cherry on top was just that like he wanted Idril for himself and was like, I think it was Idril.
It is Edril, his cousin,
Yeah,
fully his cousin.
oh my god, fully his cousin, and was like, no, I'm entitled to her, I'm in love with her. And supposedly, he dies in that battle. He gets yeeted
Yeah.
off a cliff, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So that's one theory, is that he's Maeglin. Another theory is that he is
Maglor.
Maglor.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
Maglor never, his death was never like canonically
Never
like
confirmed. Yeah. And
described.
Maglor is, again, reminder, is the second son of Feanor. And so he and Maedhros ended up with the two Silmarils at the very, like, towards the very end of the Silmarillion, but they burned their hands so badly and caused them to go mad. And Maglor cast his into the ocean, and then I think it just says like, and then wandered away and was never heard from again. So his death we've never like read about or confirmed, so like that one might be more believable. People have said, but the show doesn't have rights to the Silmarillion.
Okay. Oh my God,
But
y'all.
a lot of people have also pointed out that the Tolkien estate has given the show, the writers have asked for rights to specific details or things from the Silmarillion. And the Tolkien estate could have very well granted them rights to, the character of Maglor.
Absolutely. Like they are working directly with Simon Tolkien. You know what I mean? They can ask for whatever they want, basically, and it's up to the Tolkien estate's discretion to grant it. The
Yeah.
only reason I would go Maeglin over Maglor, even though Maglor's death, it leaves that nice little canonical loophole, and that like he just faded out of memory rather than like
Yeah.
canonically died. I don't consider him as like inherently wicked as being like
Yeah.
Maglor did some like horrible stuff, right? Like he participated in the kinslaying and like, but then he like raised Elros and Elrond as his own, and like I think he was kind of like more begrudging with continuing
Yeah.
to follow Feanor's oath.
And towards the end of their journey, we see him trying to like leave behind their past and like move
Exactly.
forward. And Maedhros is the one who's like, nah, we're gonna go get those Silmarils, bro. Um,
Exactly.
and I think he would be so. I think like what happened with him and the Silmaril, I think would have changed him so much that I don't think he would turn back to darkness in the way that we're seeing Adar do. So
I completely agree.
Maeglin, especially from the perspective of like, oh my God, a toxic boy who thinks he's entitled to women and is
Yeah.
scorned by their rejection.
The original incel.
Yes. Like
Absolutely.
that makes for like, that's a backstory of like real life people,
Yeah, and he was
today.
like
So like that would make so much sense.
absolutely. And it would also tie into what he said of like, I'm not a god yet. Cause like he was promised to be a ruler, right? Like he was promised power
Yeah.
by this entity that like, it would just make sense like why he would have a motivation to bring back the person who has the power to grant him power, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really think it's him. I really think it's him. It would be, and I don't think it's like that. He like he died relatively young. So like, I don't think it would be that like egregious of like a canon twist. to bring him. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm kind of
And
on board.
I think there's also like so much. I think you could also explain away his supposed death by like there was so much chaos going on with, you know, the battle in Gondolin, the fall of Gondolin, that okay, again, if I'm remembering all of this correctly, he gets like pushed off the same cliff that his father was pushed off of.
Absolutely.
So it could be that like, oh, they pushed him off the cliff and he was just presumed dead, you know, but like he's just like lying at the bottom of this chasm, barely alive, and somehow like recovers from that.
Yeah, like Sauron could have intervened, you know?
Yeah, because there's so much chaos with that battle and so many people died that like it you could very easily be like, no, he didn't die there, he was just presumed dead, you know. So again, more interesting, we'll have to see where that is. Okay, so jumping ahead, Theo is trying to run away and like escape from the orcs in this village and is like hiding from them, and then at the last second someone swoops in and like kills an orc that's about to kill him, and it's Arondir. And
Our boy.
I did love that reveal. That was a great moment for me.
That was just because like I knew it was gonna happen. Like as soon as like Theo got swamped by
Yeah.
orcs, I was like, for sure, like our boy, our king,
It's the
Arondir.
kind of thing where like your brain realizes what's about to happen right as it happens. And so it's that satisfaction of like, oh, I think this is going to happen. Oh my God, it did happen. Yeah. So it's like
I
a very
loved it.
triumphant moment.
I loved it. I think the slow-mo sequence was like a little too long, but then him like catching the arrow and then like the moment with the sunlight was so lovely.
Oh my God.
Amazing work.
That moment where he catches the arrow
Yeah.
and then in the same swoop puts it into his bow and shoots it.
Like period. Like period.
Oh my God, amazing. So hot. I will say the way that they made that sequence slow-mo and it was underscored by this choral music, and then there are all these arrows and like he's being chased by this pack of orcs. I was like, are they like setting up that like one of them
Like
is
a
gonna die?
death.
Like it really felt like one of them was gonna die.
Yeah.
And I was also like, are we about to have a Boromir moment? Like just because there were so many arrows, I was like, he's gonna get Boromired, you know?
Yeah.
So, but then they escape into a field where the sun comes out. And so the orcs obviously don't want to come out. Beautiful moment.
Beautiful.
And this singing comes in and you're like, oh, okay, this is just like really beautiful choral music. But then we transition over and it's Disa singing to the mountains. Beautiful. Real quick before we jump over to the dwarves, just want to finish up this side of the story. So when Bronwyn and Arondir are catching up and stuff, he shares that the message he was sent to deliver is that they're either to submit their will to this leader or die, which like we probably could have predicted that would be the message. But for some reason I thought it was going to be like the message was like Sauron is here or something, or like Sauron is back. Like I thought the message was going to be like my name is Sauron, you know, or something.
I thought it would,
even though I didn't think that guy was Sauron, I was like, I thought it was going to be directly mentioned Sauron. But yeah, that's the message that Arondir was released to deliver, which again, I felt it was kind of a cop out of just like releasing him from prison when we just spent the entire previous episode watching him toil and two of his friends die brutally and trying to escape. And then just for him to like be released at the beginning of the next episode was kind of, it felt like kind of a waste of his plot line to me.
It is kind of interesting. Like, I can see that it's like a play from Adar. Like, maybe like Adar is wanting for allies that aren't just orcs, you know? Like when he was like, you've been lied to, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's trying to do damage control after he watched two of his friends mercilessly slaughtered in front of him. I don't know. But yeah, it was a bit weird. But if Adar is playing the long game so that like, you know, when he comes and inevitably raids the tower where Bronwyn's people are hiding, he'll be like, I told you, like, you've been lied to, join forces with me to blah, 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 blah. Like, I can see that happening, but it was a bit out of nowhere.
Yeah. The Dwarven and Elrond, you know, side of the story, the Forge is making great progress that they have, like, teamed up to build. Celebrimbor and Elrond are watching it from like their tower, their window or something. Celebrimbor then said, I absolutely hated this moment because it immediately made me be like, so like for obvious reasons, we're supposed to be wary of Celebrimbor. Like people who know what happens are going to be wary of Celebrimbor because of what he creates and like what happens. But this moment just really made me not like him because he does a thing where he like is about to say something and then stops, and Elrond's like, no, what were you going to say? And he's like, I don't want to bring it up because, I mean, he is your friend after all. And to me, it felt like he was deliberately trying to drive a wedge between Elrond and Durin and like sow those seeds of doubt in their like very newly repaired friendship. And I was like, no, I'm not about that. Absolutely not, sir. Like, stay away from them. I love them. But it does open up. He says, I think Durin is hiding something. He's being secretive. And so that kind of like motivates Elrond to like go do some investigating.
Yeah, I'm really, really torn at this point on, I think, the elves in general, because like we have all these like brilliant, amazing actors with so much magnetism and nuance and gravitas, but there is like a certain familiarity to their political maneuverings that feels a little West Wing to me. That feels, and we saw a lot in episode 1, and then we got like a little break from that. But like, yeah, like to me, I don't think elvish politics should feel familiar, and especially when we have Numenor as this source of like political machinations, right? And so like I think the elvish politics feel very mortal, feel a little modern, and I think I'm wishing for like a little bit more nobility, despite the fact that, you know, like all of Silmarillion is about elves just making poor decisions.
God, right?
But yeah, I think that moment didn't ding me quite so much because Durin is hiding something, and I was like,
Yeah.
for
I mean,
sure.
like, yes, he ended up being correct, but
Yeah.
I didn't appreciate the way that he went about it. And like, I don't know, it's just because like I love seeing Elrond and Durin
Yeah,
interact like with my whole heart. And so I
absolutely.
was like, no, we are not tearing this apart. No, how dare you?
Absolutely. Truly, like, Durin's interactions with everyone are just like my favorite part of the show. Durin and Disa,
Outstanding.
Durin and Elrond, my God, like everything related to Khazad-dûm is my favorite part of the show so far.
Love the dwarves. Oh my gosh. I feel like who could not love the dwarves? Again, the actor who plays Prince Durin is Owain Arthur. Shout out to him. I know he's listening.
Surely, surely.
Yeah, Elrond goes to investigate and asks Disa like where he is, and Disa is again, I love the little hints of like domesticity where like you can hear the kids like playing in the background,
Yeah.
and then she's yelling at them and is like, stop jumping off the bed or something, you know. I love Disa. I
Love
love this
her.
scene. I love seeing her. Like I appreciate that we're seeing like Elrond and Disa interact a lot, and it's not
Yes,
just like, oh, the wife of my best friend or something, you know, that like you can tell that
absolutely.
like they're forming a relationship too.
Yes.
And so he is able to tell, like, he's able to see through her lies, you know?
Yes. And we see her, because, you know, we saw like snippets of her, like you said, being like the wife, and oh my God, just every scene she's been in has just been so precious and sparkling. And this time, in this episode, we see Disa, the future queen. Like we see her like in the lie that she told him, in like her singing to the stone. Like we see Disa, the future queen, which is so cool. And I also think that this is Robert Arameo's like best episode yet. Like him as our, like he's just so much come into his own, and he has that little fire, that regality there, that I was
Yeah.
so excited to see blossom. I just absolutely, I loved him and Disa. I loved
Yeah.
every single moment. Ugh, so good.
Yes. Later on, Disa and Durin are talking, and like it's a great mixture of the
The elf
it's
sight.
a great mixture of them joking around with each other as husband and wife, and then also as like partners together,
Yeah.
like a, you know,
Mm.
of like working on something together. And so Durin does say like, wow, that was a great lie you came up with, like good job. Elrond's like isn't easy to trick. Everything's going great in the old mines. And then yeah, we zoom out, and those elf eyes. Yeah. So Elrond is like sitting on a ledge, like spying on them with those elf eyes. And I guess his elf ears, is he able to hear that conversation too? Or is he just like lip reading?
I think he was lip reading, and like I was
Okay.
just so excited to see, because like my favorite thing about like Tolkien's magic is like just all the soft magic. So it's like the flashes of foresight, the keen eyesight, the more like understated bits of magic. And so I got unreasonably excited about the elf
Yeah.
sight. I got really hyped.
And also, people were joking on Twitter. It's like, oh, so that also means Elrond was like listening into their flirting back and forth too.
Oh, but period. As he should.
Oh my gosh, so great. So long story short, Elrond goes and uncovers this secret that Durin has been hiding. And the secret is that they are mining mithril, which a lot of people predicted when I think it's the end of the second episode, they open like a little box and there's like something glowing in it. I had like I was like, I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be mithril. I want it to be something a little more like something a little less predictable or something. Like I wanted to be something really cool and magical, and so I was making like joking predictions. I was like, "It's a Silmaril."
They're bringing them back.
I was like, it annoys me to no ends that the Silmaril Maglor had, he throws into the ocean, and I'm like, that's gotta come back up eventually, right? Like, it's not like he destroyed it or threw it into the depths of the earth. The ocean that's gonna wash up on a shore somewhere eventually, right? Right. And so I'm like waiting for, I don't think that's ever gonna happen, but it just annoyed me to no end that like that wasn't enough of an ending for that Silmaril for me to be satisfied with it. Anyway,
I love that.
but it is mithril. However, Elrond, when he like is looking at it, he says it seems like it is lit from within, which is what the Silmarils are. So anyway,
oh my
I know
God.
it's not a Silmaril.
You're like,
but
I'm making this happen. I'm making this
yes.
happen. The entire mountain is a Silmaril.
Yes, no. The secret though, why they're hiding it is because King Durin has ordered for them to stop this project because mining mithril is very dangerous. And then case in point, a mine collapses. We have again like lovely friendship moments throughout this episode with Elrond and Durin. There's a moment where they are where Elrond is like Durin says hand to mountain, which is very serious for dwarves. And Elrond of course does it and is like, I promise I am not going to tell anyone. He's like, I have no idea what is going on. Like, why don't you just fill me in here? You know, like I want to repair our friendship and we can't do that with secrets. And then when the mine collapses, Durin is going into, and I live for the moment of Elrond being like, Durin, no, and like Durin being like, I gotta go in there.
Yeah.
And such a great moment. And so that's why we see Disa singing to the mountains. It's like a prayer to the mountains to release the dwarves safely. And just such a beautiful moment, like very like somber, very regal, you know, reverent, just absolutely amazing. Loved it.
That was so Tolkienian. Like the dwarves like singing with this resonance to plead to the mountain. Like absolutely that felt so right to me. That felt so beautiful to me. And yes, I love the moment like hand to stone, you're gonna swear this oath, because like oaths, like words have power in Tolkien's universe. And like we see obviously with like the oath of Fëanor, like that to me that was almost an echo, like an allusion to just how powerful that oath was, and just how you cannot make oaths willy-nilly in the universe of Eru Ilúvatar, because you'll be held to it. Like you are bound to that destiny when you utter those words.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. That whole sequence was just so powerful to me. I was so excited.
Yeah, just really great. The dwarves are all released and everything's fine. Durin comes out though really angry with his father. I didn't fully understand all of this, of like why he was angry, because his dad the king shuts down this project once and for all. And Durin comes in and is like really angry with him, is like, I wish I could just tell him how I feel and what I'm thinking, like with no having to hide anything or hold things back or sugarcoat anything. Like, I wish I could just speak honestly with him. And then he says, like, at the same time, I wish I never had to talk to him again. Like, again, the actor is so amazing. Like, a really great moment of like anger and frustration and sadness. And this moment Disa has where she like looks over at Elrond, and you can tell where Elrond and Disa in that moment are like, okay, we're gonna fix this. Like, we're gonna address this situation, you and I. Like, we're all a team here. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. It was so
Um
beautiful. And we got that. I am so like obsessed with the lovely parental stuff that's being explored in this show. I wasn't necessarily expecting it, but like when Elrond said that thing about how he would like take anything from his father, even if it was judgment, just to like talk to him one more time, I was like, oh, my
I
heart.
also, yeah, so like in that, I need to like look more into this. Apparently it's a huge like running joke and meme within the fandom of mom's a bird, dad's a star. And I've like never have seen that joke before. And I like all of a sudden it's coming up again. So yeah, Elrond gives this speech about how dad's a star. And it never occurred to me the amount of pressure Elrond is under when he's like, my dad sailed to Valinor and convinced the Valar to fight against Morgoth, and that ended up winning us the war. And then he received a Silmaril and became a star. Like,
Yeah, like talk
I
about a
don't like
legacy. My God.
that's insane. Like, it never once occurred to me like the amount of pressure he's under. Um, that being said, I never really appreciate it in shows and movies and whatnot when you have one character expressing frustration about their parental relationship, and then another character will come in and be like, well, at least you have a dad. These are like not things to say when someone is struggling with a relationship that they have with their parents. So that's a personal pet peeve of mine that I don't appreciate that, because it does nothing to take away from like there are definitely like toxic parental relationships out there. And I think saying like be grateful you at least have one isn't the answer. That being said, Elrond's speech works on Durin, and he, is like, yeah, I guess you're right. So
Yeah, I think I wholeheartedly agree and would apply that to here if Doran was a human. I think what this was like the recognition of like dwarves are like stone, right? Like they're difficult to move, but once they shift on a topic, like once their beliefs take hold, like they're very hard to move from that. And I think like this like anger bubbling up in Durin, I don't know, like we even see like in I know people have beef with the Hobbit movies. We see like how much dwarves can hold a grudge, right? Like that has been established in canon. Like dwarves are like hardy, like ferocious folk. And I think this was more of a like, and like Disa sending Elrond that look was like, this is actually a problem. And I think, and we also see how old Durin's father is. And I think it was more of a like, I hear you, but I think you're running out of time, and I ran out, and I don't want you to have to go through this. So that's the way I think. I think if you had said that to a human, I would be like, all right, Elrond, like literally relax. You're ageless. Your dad is a star. This is not the same situation. But I think Disa's look pointed to it being a more severe thing of like, I think he might fully be estranged from his father if we don't stop this. So that's how I read it. But on principle, I completely agree that it's like,
yeah, like I understand that's a very nuanced way to view that conversation, and like there's already so much happening in these episodes, and that like we don't have time to like go, but like that
but
was
you're
just,
right
like,
though. But you're right. Like don't ever do that.
My personal pet peeves. So
absolutely.
And then they end up like walking out of the room together, arguing about how Elrond and Durin met, and it's such a funny, cute conversation where Jesus like, so Durin tells me that he saved you from 2 trolls. Elrond, would you like to tell me your part of the story? And Elrond's like, I saved Durin from 3 trolls. I heard screaming and I thought it was a kid. Like I thought it was a child. And like, again, their dynamic, absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it.
So cute.
We get another very like wholesome scene between Prince Durin and King Durin. King Durin saying like, I don't want to leave you behind wondering how I truly felt about you, and like leaving my trust in you and faith in you to question. And he like comes out and says like, I'm supporting you. Like, I will always support you no matter what. And is like very open about it. And like, it's a very sweet moment of, you know, and like, you don't see that a lot. You don't see those moments a lot between men on television. You don't see those moments a lot between father and son on television. So it was really great to see them being so caring and loving towards each other, but like again in their own in like this in a dwarvish way, you know.
Absolutely, like tender but make it dwarfish. Like
Yes, yeah,
it was beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah, I like I said, yeah.
Yeah. And then Durin says, Elrond has invited me to Lindon tomorrow. What do you think I should do? And the king says like, well, what do you think? And he says, I think there's something more at play. And King Durin is like, I agree. Go to Lindon and find out. Great moments.
Great moment.
Okay, I think we've successfully hit pretty much everything. Holy cow. What was your favorite moment from the episode?
Okay.
Do you want me to go first? I can
go first and I'll brainstorm.
Okay. My favorite moment was the very end of the episode because I love the theme for Numenor is so powerful. Created by Bear McCreary. In a previous episode, I couldn't remember his last name, and I was like, all I know is his first name is Bear. Anyway, the theme for Numenor, I'm just living for. It's so powerful, but it also sounds like ancient and mythical because Numenor is like an ancient and mythical place to, you know, in lore, you know, and like it's very like just. I love it so much. I like almost want to get him on just to talk about that one theme. Anyway, and so we have this scene of everyone volunteering to go fight in Middle Earth, and you see Isildur's friends who he got kicked off of sailor camp. They raise their hands to volunteer to serve, and Isildur sees that. He's like, this is how I can redeem my family name. This is how I can redeem my friendship with them. So he volunteers to serve, and Elendil is watching and is like, boy, what are you doing? The way that the theme is swelling as people are continuing to raise their hands and volunteer to serve, and Miriel and Galadriel are like looking at each other, a unified force, like watching it all come together. Just like top, like really great way to end the episode, in my opinion.
Hell yeah. I just got so excited when it was like, Isildur is going to Middle Earth. I was like, period. This is where it gets juicy. Okay. I think I'm a cop out. So first of all, wait, real quick though. In that scene, like, so Isildur's friend, I actually meant to say this earlier. My favorite, we found out his name, I think, last episode, but like Valandil, that ends up being the name of Isildur's youngest son later on. And that's who survives to carry on the lineage of Isildur. That's Aragorn's ancestor. So the fact that he like,
oh my gosh,
he names his kid after his best friend. Isn't that so cute?
Well, that probably means that he's gonna die in battle then.
Absolutely. He will die a valorous death, and we hate and love that for him.
Oh my gosh.
This is a cop-out because I'm choosing a tie, but it's a tie between when the petals start falling after Galadriel's departure, and we see Miriel like turn and make eye contact with Elendil, and they just those characters realizing the full gravity of what's up. Or the Durin Elrond oath, like that whole sequence of him being like, I'm going to tell you, like, I'm going to make this, I'm choosing my friendship over, you know, any possibility of like telling your secret, whatever. Like, I love that.
Yes,
good content.
Yeah, I guess overall this was it's so funny because I always go into these being like, I don't necessarily know how I feel about it, but I think I always just have like such fun conversations with everyone that I end up being like, that was the best episode of TV ever, you know?
It's so cool. Like, it's kind of reminiscent of Game of Thrones in that there are so many different factions and things going on, but you have like that complexity with like the lovely languid energy of Tolkien, and I'm living for it. I really am.
Yeah. Well, Anna Maria, thank you for coming on. Again, great conversation. I'm so glad we got to connect finally. What would you like to share with the audience? Do you have any, you know, where can people follow you on the internet? Do you have any projects or anything coming up?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at only Anna Maria. That's Anna Maria with 2 N's. I am currently in grad school, acting at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. So if you're in London, I guess keep a lookout for shows I've got going on. But other than that, thank you so much for having me on. I was so excited to meet you. I was like, this is going to be an excellent time. And it was.
Yes. It's just so great because when I started this podcast, it was really hard to like reach out into the fandom and like other creators because I didn't want to be spoiled on anything.
Right.
And so now it's really fun where like I can like connect more with people and find other people to hang out with and geek out over all of these like over like freaking like petals falling, you know?
We're like the ramifications of the petal. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the joy of it.
Oh, so great. That's What I'm Talking About is a proud member of WBNE. If you want to learn more about the network, you can go to wbne.org. The cover art is by Vaishon Brandon. You can support him on Instagram at Vaishon Designs. You can get merch for That's What I'm Talking About by going to tpublic.com/user/talkingaboutpod. You can follow the podcast on social media at talkingaboutpod. And you can follow me on Twitter and TikTok at MCWhatsup and on Instagram at MCTurnedDownForWhat. If you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/talkingaboutpod and join a tier that shows the level of support you want to show, which, by the way, I appreciate any level of support. All of that is genuinely wonderful and amazing. May I suggest joining the Discord tier for $3 a month? That is less than a pumpkin spice latte. And this week on Friday, I am planning to do a little watch party for episode 5 of Rings of Power. It's not going to be anything fancy. We will just all press play at the same time and have a live chat going in Discord, but it should be fun with a few people watching and being able to converse with people as you're reacting to things, or maybe you have questions about what was that random thing, or oh my god, I forgot who this character is. So it should be a fun time. Come and join us if you can. Or you can become a sponsor of the podcast like Steph. Steph is our newest sponsor of the podcast. I am so thankful and glad that people are still finding this podcast 3 years in. I really genuinely thought that things peaked at the Lord of the Rings movies. I didn't think people would want to keep listening through the Hobbit movies, and especially the Silmarillion. And so the fact that, Steph, you found this podcast and that you're enjoying it and you're supporting it really means a lot to me. And one more thing before we go, there is a friend of the pod who is going through a very difficult time right now. And if you could just take a moment to send out some positive thoughts, positive vibes, prayers, if that's something you do, just send it out into the universe, send it out to this person. You don't need to know who they are or what they're going through. And friend of the pod, if you are listening, know that we are all thinking about you and sending you lots of love. Do you have any parting words for the audience?
Nothing other than a reminder that no matter whether you love or hate the show, and both are fine, it's a piece of art, that no matter what you think Tolkien would have wanted for a second age adaptation, Tolkien definitely would have preferred us to go merrymaking with our friends and taking a walk by some trees instead of being mean to strangers online. So be kind to each other and otherwise engage with the show as you wish.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Period.